Welcome back. We are going to focus on the shutter speed today. That is one of the three components in the exposure triangle. So your shutter is a mechanical window in your camera, and I'm going to actually open mine here. And if you have a DSLR, which is probably what you have if you borrowed from the school, but if you have a mirrorless camera like me, you're just going to see the sensor in here. And if I were to take a photo right now, the shutter is gonna open and close really quickly to help control the amount of light that comes in. You never take a photo without your lens. That's you don't even want to leave lens off for very long because you could get some dust on the sensor. But anyway, that shutter in there is an actual piece of equipment that's gonna open and close. So the reason that's important is, well, there's a lot of reasons. First, let's talk about the fact that if you have a really fast shutter, it opens and closes really fast, you're gonna have less light. If you have the shutter open and stay open for a while and then close, you can let in more light. So this is a slow shutter is gonna have a bright exposure, and a fast shutter is gonna have a dark exposure. And on either ends, you could get too bright or too dark, and somewhere in the middle, it's gonna be perfect. We already kind of talked about that with general exposure. So if you're taking a photo in the middle of the day and it's really bright, if you think about it, you need a fast shutter so that your pictures aren't too bright. And then if you're at night, maybe you've tried taking a picture on your phone before at night and you notice that it gets kind of blurry. It's because the shutter is actually slowing down automatically for you on your phone. But at night, if you purposefully want to take photos at night, then you're gonna need a slow shutter to let in more of the light to hit the sensor. So then let's talk about the other component to this shutter. If you don't already know this, if you have something moving in your frame, you're gonna need that faster shutter speed so that you can capture the motion without any blur. And a really good rule of thumb for your shutter, you never want to go below 1/60. It's a fraction. So 1/60th of a second shutter is about as slow as you can handle and not end up with some camera shake. Even just holding it in your hand, usually there's you tend to move it a little bit. Any slower than that, you're going to get a blurry photo. So I highly recommend not doing that for the most part. Unless you have a tripod, then you can do a slower shutter speed. And then on the other end of the spectrum, around 1/250 is a really good, just generic starting point. So when you open your camera and you're trying to take pictures, maybe start at 1/250 and see how it looks. And if your picture is too dark, then you could go slower, go down. If your photo is too bright, then you would go up. Maybe go over 1/500. So what your assignment this week is going to have you do is just to start experimenting with all these things. The main thing we're going to talk about is not just how it controls exposure, but also that sense of time and movement. The way that it expresses time is that literally these are fractions of seconds, but you are capturing an actual moment in time. And even if 1/250, a 1/250th of a second doesn't sound like much time, it is still actually a certain amount of space in time. If you were doing astrophotography, night sky photography, then you would leave your camera shutter open for 15 to 20 seconds. And what's kind of crazy is that you're actually capturing time. In one image, you can have a certain span of time in it. So something you should start doing, you're going to have details in the lecture, and then you're going to have a lot of instructions in your assignment, but find subjects that move. So you could turn on the faucet just to start and see if you can play with it. See what it's like to use a slow shutter, and you're going to have the water is going to feel blurred and kind of smooth. And then when you increase your shutter speed, you're gonna have individual droplets. A faucet of water is not a really unique, interesting picture, so maybe try to branch out after that. Some people like to get their dog running circles in their backyard and see if they can capture a blurry version of their dog and then like a stop motion version. Something else really fun to play with is have a friend do that, have someone move. You can do like light painting. This is actually like a thing that Picasso did way back in the day. You have to do this one at night, and I highly recommend doing some night photography this week. But have a friend take a flashlight and just paint shapes. And you need a tripod for that version. And so if your camera's stable, you can have your camera open for like 10 seconds and see if you can capture shapes that way. So that's a lot. Again, these first couple weeks are going to be a little bit overwhelming. There's so much to learn. Don't worry about the aperture just yet, but you will find that you have to change your aperture setting to account for how fast or slow your shutter is. And again, that's just because when one lets in more light, you have to adjust the other to bring back, to have less light. So they're kind of like moving pieces that always have to dance together. You can't ever forget about one, and just focus on one at a time. So, okay, well, that's it for now, and enjoy the shutter this week.